I'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us. I'm Elliot Nelson. I've got Joe Pine with me here. We'll get started in just a few seconds, a couple actually, about 2-3 minutes. We'll let people in. A few people from the first 2 hours. So how are you guys doing? Good. Thumbs up from a few there, from Carl. All right. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. We'll get underway in just a moment. This is our third session of our summit today. We've got a few new faces and some people who have been with us the first 2 hours. So welcome back and welcome to those who are coming in new. This is really fun doing these. I mean, I get to see some faces that I haven't seen in a while. So, and make some new friends. Hard to believe we've been more than a year now into this, right? Incroyable. Like they used to say about you always remember where you were when something important happened. I think all of us remember where we were when in March 13th a year ago, or whenever it was when you had to stop traveling. I was in Barcelona. Remember coming through New York and spending the night, and Lower Manhattan was empty. Hopefully we get through this soon, right? All right, so we're a minute past the hour. I'm going to admit the last little batch here, and then we'll get underway. I want to give Joe lots of time today. Appreciate him spending his time with us here. And so since we've got a few people new, just want to welcome you all. And this is just want to give you a little bit of a preview of the network here and how this all started. When I started doing research 4 years ago and interviewed first few companies who were at that time doing employee experience, we had Airbnb, ABN AMRO, GE, IBM. And when I asked those people after they shared their case study, their story with me, I said, what can I do for you? And most of them said, can you introduce us to somebody who's doing this work? And so we formed this network to connect, share, and learn, or I would say learn, share, and shape. That's our new motto. I don't have this on the slide for some reason, but learn, share, and shape. Every quarter we get together like this and do an open meeting like we have now. And then on day 2, we do kind of a closed door cohort where we get together with EXHX heads and share projects and things that we're doing and how we're doing things, share knowledge and talk about what's on offer for the future. So we have 3 platforms in our little group, HX Transformer Group. We do coaching on HX transformations. We also have HXWise, which is helping companies to build capabilities in different user groups. And then we have a HX Marketplace coming second half of this year for all HX related jobs. So today, the summit really is about all of us and what we're doing and how we want to emerge out of this pandemic better, more informed, more in tune with what our people are going through. And Joe, I think, is one of the most interesting and exciting people to talk to because he's really one of the forefathers of the what I would call the experience movement. But we've got user experience, customer experience, employee experience. I like to talk about as the human experience of work. And I have one of Joe's people that he's trained working with us, Morten Rohaga, who's teaches me something every day out of Joe's playbook. So lots to share with Joe. Let me just give a quick little intro on Joe. So I'm happy to introduce our guest, special guest, Joe Pine II. So he's an internationally acclaimed author, speaker, and management advisor. He's spoken at the World Economic Forum in Davos, at TED in California, South by Southwest in Austin. He's been at the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and he's been a lecturer at Columbia in their technology management program and at University of Amsterdam, one of my favorite places. And he's not an academic, though. Really, he worked for IBM for 13 years, and one of the things he did there was earn the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. And he specializes in helping people see the world of business differently through many of his groundbreaking books. So if you haven't read The Experience Economy, especially, I recommend you get a hold of a copy of that. You wrote it over 20 years ago, right, Joe? But there's a new edition.
Yeah, 1999.
Yeah, there's a new edition out. But also look at mass customization, authenticity, infinite possibilities. So I've got some of the book titles here. One of these books, well, The Experience Economy was named as one of the 100 best business books of all time. So I've asked him to talk about what experience economy means for all of us as HX leaders. So time over to Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us. So Joe, tell me about what was the origin of all of this? How did you get started? And how did this start for you? What was your personal story?
Well, it actually started in my old IBM days, right? This was in the late 1980s when I ran a group in IBM that brought customers and business partners into our development process of the AS400 mini computer, again, way back when. And so I was cycling all these customers through the first time we'd actually ever really talked to customers. And one of the things I realized was that every one of them was unique and every one was different. They wanted to use the system in different ways and put it together with different hardware and so forth. And we never took that into account. So after we announced it and launched it, then it's like, okay, what do we do now? And I moved into strategic planning, where I read Stan Davis's book, Future Perfect. And when I read that, it was like the heavens opened up and the angels sang, because it explained everything that I was seeing going on. And in that book, Stan had a chapter on mass customizing, right? So he coined the term mass customization. And I said, okay, that's what we need to do. And I got it into our plans and strategies and worked to make sure that we could mass customize the AS400. And then IBM sent me to MIT for a year to get my master's degree, to which I immediately said, well, I'm gonna turn my thesis into a book. And so I researched the term mass customization and everything about it that entire year, and came out with my thesis, and then got a contract with Harvard Business School Publishing at the time, and came out with that book in 1993. And so that was the start of thinking about what was going on in the world of business and developing ideas and frameworks and so forth. And I should explain that mass custom, well, I should explain a little bit about mass customization to make sure everybody knows what that is. I think it's very important for HX leaders as well. So I'm going to share my screen for a second here. All right, you see this?
Yes.
All right. And so what the essence of mass customization is really is that you have a portfolio of customers, where every one of them is individual, every one of them is unique, every one of them deserves to get exactly what they want at a price you're willing to pay. And then you have a portfolio of capabilities. And these are the things that you know how to do for customers. And the key to mass customization, to low cost, high volume, efficient customization, is the modularity that you see there. And it's like Lego building bricks. What can you build with Legos, Elliot?
Anything.
That's right. Anything you want. Why? Because you have a large number of modules in different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and that simple, elegant linkage system for snapping them together. So that's what mass customization is about, is on that modularity. So you work with every single customer, understand their individual needs, and then bring down only and exactly what they need, right? To create a customer unique experience chain. And that's really the key, is only and exactly, right? It's not being everything to everybody. That's a surefire way to increase your costs. And also, in terms of the human experience that you talk about, we often treat workers as standardized cogs in the wheel. We don't treat them as the individuals that they really are, which we must do as well. And then basically mass customizes the resources that we have available to us in the corporation to do exactly what individual employee needs as well. And one of the other things you need in here is some sort of a design tool. Right? Design tools is to help figure out what customers or employees want, because most don't know what they want. And even if they know, they can't articulate it. So you have to draw it out of them by letting them see what it would be like, and then get that information back into operations, do something different for that individual customer. The paragon of mass customization, I can mention Lutron Electronics has been mass customizing since the 70s. Dell Computer based its entire business model on mass customizing, that beat us at IBM back in the day, and forced IBM out of the PC business. And now there's millions of companies that mass customize. You think about your phone, where it comes out standard in the factory, but then because it's digital technology, you put your apps on it, you put your contacts on it, your music, your videos, and you make it unremittingly unique to you. And so that's where we are today, is that mass customization, back then I called it the new frontier in business competition. Today it's really an imperative in business competition. And so actually I left IBM about 6-8 months after the book came out. Not because I was looking to, but because what was going on at the IBM at the time. And I tried to see if I could make it on my own, see if I could get enough speaking and consulting engagements and so forth. And like, what is it now? Almost 28 years later, my wife still isn't sure it's going to work out, but so far so good. And shortly after I left, I was actually back teaching at the IBM Advanced Business Institute, and I was I was saying something I often did, which is that customization automatically turns a good into a service. If you look at the classic economic distinctions, goods are standardized, services are customized. They're done just for a particular person. Goods are inventoried after production, but services are delivered on demand when the customer says this is what they want. You think about how on demand all of our apps on the phone are. And goods are tangible and services intangible, but part and parcel of mass customization is the intangible service of helping customers figure out what it is that they want. So you really, if you mass customize a good, you're really in the service business of helping them define what they want. Then you make it for them, but then you deliver it to them on an individual basis. And then that same course, then this guy in the back of the room, sort of an IBM consulting, sort of a smart aleck, right? He raises his hand and he says, well, you talked about service companies that mass customize. What does it turn a service into? And I shot back that mass customization automatically turns a service into a experience. And I went, whoa, that sounds good. I mean, just literally just came out of my mouth. And I said, well, hold on a second, I got to write that down. And I wrote that down, and I realized that was true, that if you, it's basically the basis of this progression of economic value, where in the same way customizing goods turns them into services, customizing a service. If you design a service that's so appropriate for a particular person, that's exactly the service that they need at this moment in time, then you can't help but make them go, wow, and turn it into a memorable event, turn it into an experience. And so that was the beginning of the work on the experience economy. And that was in late 93 or early 94. Our first writing on it was 96. We published Harvard Business Review in 98. And then the book, as you said, came out in first edition. We're now on our third edition that came out last year in 2020. But first edition came out actually in 1999, where it basically recognizes that customization is the antidote to commoditization. Commoditization is like the law of gravity. If you do nothing else, it'll drag you down and you'll be commoditized. Right? Year after year after year, you get more and more commoditized. But customization lifts you up. It's the antidote to commoditization. It's a way of differentiating yourself, right? And that's what commoditization does, is it takes away all differentiation. But with customization, you can in fact differentiate. So, so the basic thesis is that experiences are a distinct economic offering, and that today we're in an experience economy, an economy where experiences have become the predominant economic offering, where experiences are what people are looking for today over goods and services, right? In fact, people want goods and services to be commoditized so they can spend their hard-earned money and their hard-earned time on the experiences that they value.
Great. So for those of you who haven't read your book, The Experience Economy, what are some of the main ideas that you think would be especially relevant for this audience?
Well, there are so many things that we talk about in there, and the first thing again is like, if you remember nothing else, remember this: that experiences are a distinct economic offering. And so as HX leaders in an organization, you need to help the organization prepare to you have a choice, right? Prepare to either be commoditized, right? In which case you need to focus on getting rid of people, on automating as much as possible and getting as much scale as possible. Or you need to help the leaders, the managers, and the people in the organization shift up this progression of economic value to staging experiences, to be an experience company. And obviously it requires different things, different capabilities, different ways of working and so forth. Now, one of the things that I think is getting in the way of shifting up to experiences is a misconception on what experiences really are, right? It's why I keep emphasizing the fact that experiences are a distinct economic offering. But in fact, a lot of companies have a CX program, right? That was so-called customer experience, and it came out because of our work on the experience economy. But when most people, not all, but when most people use the term CX, they don't mean what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. When they talk about CX, what they mean is, let's make our interactions with our customers nice and easy and convenient. And those are all well and good, but those are service characteristics. Yeah. Those aren't experience characteristics. With experience companies, is that a lot of companies are creating the chief experience officer position. I know you earlier had on the chief design officer at Steelcase. Well, they just last year, Mark Greiner retired there as the chief experience officer. He's had that position for a number of years before he retired, and you see that more and more. Where companies are recognizing they really have to put this focus on experiences. Yeah. And when you do, you realize, well, that nice is nice, but rarely does it rise to the level of memorability. And if you don't create a memory, right? A memory is the hallmark of the experience. If you don't create that memory, then you really didn't engage people to be able to wow them in a way that's going to create that experience. And when we make things easy for customers, often what that means is that we routinize them to make it easy for our employees to be able to serve our customers in an easy manner. Yeah. And that standardization that you get there, again, gets in the way of being personal. And experiences are inherently personal. The experiences, understand, actually happen inside of us. It's our reaction to the events that are staged in front of us. You need to reach inside of people and engage them in an inherently personal way. And then finally, convenience is the antithesis of what I'm talking about. Convenience means let's get in and out as quickly as possible. Let's spend as little time with customers as possible. And that's what a lot of companies focus on today. You think about banks in particular. No industry is more commoditized itself than banking, because they came to view spending time with customers as costing them money. Yeah. And so you lose that opportunity. And so, but time is what experiences are really all about. It's getting them to value the time that they spend with you. If you think about it this way, whenever you have one of these economic shifts, you can draw a line in the middle there and talk about all the different distinctions between each of the economic offerings, right? So I'll just focus on one right here, Elliot. And that is, understand that it's about time, right? It's about time. That services are about time well saved, right? Time well saved. That what people want is, they want you to save your time. They want it to be nice and easy and convenient. They want to spend as little time as possible. But experiences are about time well spent. that people value the time that they spend with you, right? That's what experiences are really all about. And it's not that you want to spend, tons of time, but the right amount of time to get the experience out of it that they want. And the last thing I'll point to is that one of the things we talk about in the 2020 re-release of the book, where the subtitle is competing for customer time, attention, and money, that's exactly what's going on today, is that you're competing for the time, the attention, and the money of individual customers. And again, you can think of this on an HX basis about your employees as well, about where they're spending their time. What are they giving their attention to, particularly if they're working from home? And you compete with all the other ways that they could possibly make money. But on a customer basis, understand that, well, actually on both customer and employee basis, understand that the most precious resource on the planet is the time of individual human beings, right? And I think when you think of what the H in HX means, right, this is something you really, really have to understand, right? The most precious resource on the planet is our time. It is, it marches on at the approximate rate of 1 second per second. There's nothing we can do about it. And on a customer basis, we're competing for their time, because if they're spending their time with some other company, then they're not spending it with you. And it's also true that the number one competitor for attention is the smartphone, right? We can immediately pick up our phone and drop out of whatever we're doing and be out of a meeting, be out of an experience, be out of a retail store, and we're off someplace else. Because of how easy that now is to do. And that's where our attention is being drawn. And it's also true, finally, that money should never be the purpose of any company, right? I think that's part of AHX as well. Making money is not the purpose of any company. It's the measure of how well you fulfill your purpose. And so time, attention, and money, the three currencies of the experience economy, are important for every HX leader to understand.
But Joe, we're HR people. Are we really supposed to be creating memorable experiences? People don't join a company because it has great HR. And they don't leave because HR sucks. So and I know a lot of us are focused on employee life cycle, onboarding, recruiting, performance, learning, these types of things. And how do you go about designing a memorable experience? How do you go about designing experiences, period, and staging those kinds of things? Take us through some of your main pillars, and what are some things that we should be thinking about?
Well, people will in fact join a company for the work that they do, and HR sure has an impact on the work that they do, particularly often on the crud work that they end up having to do because of all of the restrictions and all of the prescriptions and everything that they have to do. And and they'll definitely leave because they'll absolutely leave because they got a poor manager or a poor leader above them, and HR absolutely affects that as well. So there is it may not be the direct influence so much, but the absolute influence of HR within a company has an absolute bearing on the quality of the people you have, and on how long they stay, and then on the development of them as they go through. Well, so in terms of how to go about it and think about it, in that in the new edition, we introduced 5 new terms for the elements of experience, I'll call them, or the qualities of an experience. And that what you want to do is you want to create experiences that are robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and even transformative. And those again apply on the customer side as well as the employee side. And robust experiences are about hitting this sweet spot in the middle of this framework, right? This framework we call the 4 realms of experiences, about whether the experience is more or less passive or more or less active, whether you're absorbing the experience into you or whether you're being immersed into the experience. And so the 4 realms of experience are, number 1, entertainment, right? Where you're passively absorbing in the sights and sounds that are presented to you. Then there's educational experiences, where you actively are getting involved in wrestling with that information that's presented to you, that you're absorbing in. There are escapist experiences where you're actively immersed in another environment. You go from one place to another. And finally, there are aesthetic experiences where you have a great environment where you just want to hang out and be. You think of entertainment classically as movies, TVs, YouTube videos, and so forth. Education, obviously, is all of the educational things that we do. Escapist is as tourism, is largely escapist, but going to a theme park, whether it's in your town or another town, or escape rooms, obviously. And aesthetic experiences are museums, natural parks, cafes. Starbucks is primarily an aesthetic experience. And so the most robust and experiences, most engaging experiences, those that hit the sweet spot in the middle, that have aspects of all four of those experiences, all four of those realms of experience, excuse me. So think about L&D, right? Think about learning and development that is primarily educational. It's there to educate. Well, we've had for 30 years or so this term edutainment, right? That some people originally rebelled at. Maybe there's still some to do, but this combination of educational and entertainment is simply the recognition that you need people to pay attention, right? Again, if you entertain them while you're educating them, right? If instead of a dry recitation of the basic facts that will bore people to death and they'll soon turn off in your monotone voice, you actually add some level of entertainment and jokes and engagement there, then the chances they learn, actually go up. But think about educational plus escapist experiences, right? What we'll call eduscapist, right? We got edutainment. We need eduscapist experiences, right? What's that? That's a field trip. That's going someplace and learning thereby, right? And we don't do enough field trips in organizations to go to other places and learn. I often take companies on experience expeditions to go out and experience a city and, as a consumer, and then figure out what are the principles that you can then apply to your business. Right? That's a great way to do it as well. And it's also Josh Bersin has this great term, learning in the flow of work. Right, that we need to learn in the flow of work. If we just go to a class and then we do nothing with what we learn about that class for weeks or months on end, well, we're going to forget everything we learned, right? We need to learn in the flow of work, and that work is primarily the escapist level that we're doing as well. And if you create a great environment with aesthetic, then you can have people that are more productive, that want to be there, that want to hang out, and so forth. So I think it's something, again, whether you're talking about customers or employees, that it's a framework that that anybody can apply. So that's robust. The second key element is cohesive, and for that you require a theme, right? And I won't go through all of this, but the basic note, it's 5 design principles, but the basic notion is you have to have an organizing principle to the experience. That you have to have a way of deciding what's in and what's out of the experience. It doesn't mean it has to be in your face like a themed restaurant. Doesn't mean it has to be a fantasy like a theme park, but it's the organizing principle for the experience. For example, a Whirlpool company has a sales training that they take people out of college and turn them into salesmen for Whirlpool. And they themed it after the MTV reality program, Real World, right? Where you house all these people in a house and then you film all the interactions, right? Because you don't let them leave. And so here they called it Real World, but world is spelled WHIRLED for Whirlpool. And they bought this condominium in St. Joseph, Michigan. They house all the retainees there. They do all the learning there. They don't pay for hotel experiences. You've got to stay there. They don't pay for meal experiences. Why? So you make your own meals and using Whirlpool appliances in the home. Same thing with laundry. You got to wash your own clothes. And the final exam, if you will, is when they create a meal for top management at Whirlpool and serve it to them in the dining room in the house, right? And their retention rates have gone up 50%, because they do that, because of the wonderful theme of the experience. I talked about personal, right? The customization aspect. On dramatic, it's important to understand that work is theater. That when you stage experiences, your work is theater. And I don't mean it as a metaphor. It's not work as theater. I literally mean work is theater. So whenever workers are in front of customers, they're on stage. They need to act in a way that engages that audience and creates that experience within them. So as HX leaders, we need to prepare people to be on stage. We need to direct our workers to act, give them the tools that they need to be able to do that, to create these dramatic experiences. And then finally, is this finally? Oh yeah, so I'm sorry, this is a little other thing on theater, which I understand is another basic difference between what versus how. What are the functional activities that we do? How we go about doing them is what turns a mundane interaction into an engaging encounter, right? So it's, again, getting people focused on what versus how. We've got what standards, here's the functional things, but what are our how standards? How are we going to engage companies, our customers in the theater? And then this is another model that I think is particularly important to think about for employees experience, is this 5 E's, we call it, which is where you have enticing phase of the experience. You have the entering phase, the engaging phase, the exiting, and then finally the extending. And so you can use this to design your experience about what happens before and after to entice people to come, and how you extend that experience through time. That primary thing you're looking for of how you engage them during the experience, but then also what's your first impressions on entering, and what happens at the end. Daniel Kahneman's peak end rule, that people will remember most what happens at the peak, the dramatic climax of the experience during the engaging phase, and what happens at the end in the exiting. So you can think about these 5 E's for employees as well, right? So how do you entice employees to want to come? How do we onboard them, particularly in these COVID times, so we're not actually being in the office? But even then, I know so many companies just have terrible onboarding experiences. And then how do you engage them during the life of their employment? What happens on that exiting? So many people, it's like, you're done, pick up your stuff, go home, instead of realizing, well, hey, we need to extend this experience. We need to draw people in, because these people will tell other people about us and be recommenders or not, and maybe even be clients of ours down the line, particularly for a professional services firm. And you can apply this at any level. Any L&D course should have these 5 stages. Any job between promotions should have these 5 stages, and everything else, right? It's like a fractal that works at different parts of the organization. And then finally, I'll mention one more, which is then again that transformative. That from the very beginning, we realized that experiences can be commoditized as well. Experiences may be the easiest economic offering to commoditize, because the second time you have an experience doesn't tend to be as good as the first. The third time, not as good as that. And then you got customers saying, been there, done that, right? That's the hallmark of a commoditized experience. Well, using the same heuristic that customization is the antidote to commoditization, what happens when you customize an experience? When you design an experience that's so appropriate for this particular person, exactly the experience that they need at this moment in time, well, then you can't help but change into what we often call a life transforming experience. In other words, an experience that changes us in some way, and that I call a transformation. Right? So the transformation is the 5th and final economic offering in this progression of economic value, where you are guiding people to change, where you're helping them achieve their aspirations. Right. So many businesses are naturally in the transformation business. Think about higher education, about healthcare, management consulting, coaches of all stripes, right? Coaches are in the transformation business, which where people have an aspiration and they need help in achieving that aspiration. And so this, again, I think is the core responsibility for HR. The core responsibility for HX leaders is to transform the people under their care. And I think that's something that they really need to, that all of us need to understand, that this is the ultimate, and what we can do is to help our people achieve their aspirations in a way that helps our corporation achieve its aspirations as well. You're on mute, Elliot.
I had a little noise going on here. So Hannah Jorgensen asked, when you design for robust experiences, do you deliberately or how I should say, how do you deliberately design for specific emotions?
That's a great question. There's a number of work that's been done on, I'm trying to remember the name, Russell's emotional wheel,
Mhm.
and so forth, that you can use to be able to think about the particular emotions that you want. It's not all about being happy, I'll say. There's a lot of work being done, a lot of research that talks about when we buy experiences, we're happier than when we buy things. I think that's true also. You can think about it internally with employees, that if we're doing it for the money, we're not going to be as good as worker. That for extrinsic reasons, excuse me, we're going to be better workers, we're going to be more productive, and we're going to be happier if we do it for intrinsic reasons. And so developing those intrinsic reasons is important as well for every individual employee. So it's don't just think about happy, but it's also to help to people manage the emotions that they have and they want to bring to their workplace.
How do you see design thinking playing a role? I mean, there are a lot of different little frameworks, and it's design thinking today. It could be something else later, but there's some different tools and methods that organizations and people use to discover what are the moments that matter, and then use some of your design principles. How do you see some of these things supporting the work that you've been
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of design thinking. It's a wonderful way to approach problems, particularly wicked problems that have difficult solutions to them. Um, it's important to recognize what we're designing, right? Is the thing I'd add to that. Is like, so again, we'll talk about more X's, right? There's UX, user experience, for
Yeah.
when we're designing a software or a physical thing, right? Goods. I think CX really applies to services. That again, it's really not experience level, even though it's got the word experience in there. There's industrial design and graphic design that applies at that lower level as well. But we need great focus on experience design when that is what we're doing, and not all of the things that applied at the lower levels apply with experience design. So, and the key thing I'll come back to again with experience design. I love this quote from John Jurdy, right? An experience architect. He's the one that coined the term placemaking. And his definition, he said, experiential design, he said, what we do is design time.
Mhm.
You design time. You're designing the time your customers or your employees are spending with you. And that's what experience design is fundamentally about, right? It's the design of time. That's why dramatic structure is so important, right? Dramatic structure, you think of it, the x-axis is time. You're designing the time along which that drama happens. You're designing the time that your employees are spending with you during the course of a day, a course, a job, a career, a lifetime. And you need to design that time in a way that is going to be engaging and that helps them, and transformative. Right? Engaging and transformative are the key.
Yeah. What's one of the questions being asked is how do you see, or what's the reaction of corporate leaders that you've worked with in your use of the term theater? Theater in the workplace. How do they usually respond to that kind of idea?
Well, there's the original subtitle of the book back in 1990 was "Work is Theater and Every Business is Stage."
Yeah.
And it's probably because of that that we wrote the second book on authenticity. Because a lot of people, my wife is one of these, who thinks that all acting is fake and phony, right? It's play acting and so forth. And that's not the case. Is that um, acting is fundamentally about choosing, right? It's choosing what parts of yourself to reveal in front of yourself. So I'd say to anyone, including a leader in a corporation, is that we all know we act differently in front of our boss than our peers, in front of our family than our friends, in front of friends and strangers, right? It's not that we're being fake or phony in any one of those. It's simply a matter of choosing what parts of ourself to reveal to those that are in front of us. And so that's what acting is fundamentally about. So can acting be phony? Absolutely. It can be phony. I won't go into this 2x2 matrix at the core of authenticity, but basically it talks about you can be real, fake, real, or real, fake. And we can be any of those and acting. And obviously what we need to strive for is the real form of acting.
Great. Reminds me of a sign I saw once as a tourist. It said they were promoting genuine fake watches.
Right.
So, genuine fakes.
That's
How,
that's the fake.
yeah, right. How has the experience economy evolved since you first wrote this? And what do you see are some key changes, maybe, or like things being accelerated through this pandemic?
Well, obviously, the key thing is the rise of digital technology, right? The internet was in its infancy when we wrote this, and we finished it in fall of 1998. And so the World Wide Web is all 4 years old at that time. I mean, I've been using computers since sixth grade, actually, myself in Palo Alto, where my dad worked for SRI. But for most people, it was very new at the time, and so we've seen two basic effects there. Is that one, the reason most people are on the internet most of the time is because of the wonderful experiences that you can have on there. Remember the term surfing the web, right? The surfing the web was like the sweet spot experience that you could have and just flow, and all time would wash away. You'd get into flow and that's still very possible with, obviously, with games of all stripes on the that you can get on the internet. But what it has is this tremendous commoditizing effect.
Mhm.
And that commoditizing effect means that we can instantly compare prices from one vendor to another, and it tends to shift our prices down to the lowest possible price. That people really are looking for a price on the internet. The rise of Amazon is all about that, and really is commoditizing many industries and many companies because of that. So you have this sort of dual effect for it. But where for particularly companies that have heavy competition on the internet, like retailers, I always emphasize that, like, you've got to give a reason for shoppers to come into your stores. You've got to give them an experience. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to do that. So again, you face a choice, and this is a strategic choice, right? You can be the number one best commodity supplier of X, whatever it is, and you can be successful at that. But generally only number one or number two make money. Everybody else, is just has sort of a subsistence level. Or you can choose to say, we're going to be different. We're going to have differentiation. We're going to shift up that progression of economic value, customize what we do, and shift to the experience and the transformation level to be able to do that. The other thing too, to answer your question, is obviously you look at what's happened over the last year, right? In your introduction there, I was thinking, where I was as I was on the island of Kauai with my wife. So supposedly speaking, that event that canceled, it was the first event that I canceled, the last physical event that I had. And that's obviously had a tremendous effect on it. And obviously, so it killed the physical experience sector of the economy, right? It's any place that people want to gather is no place that people want to be during the height of this crisis. And so it's that sector of the economy that has come down. But it doesn't mean that we don't want experiences. We still have this tremendous desire. So we've gone from experience from physical to digital, from out there to in here, from social to familial, basically. But we still are having these experiences. We will not give them up. And the other thing that it's doing is, I think, is actually increasing the desire for meaning. That we recognize that we're sort of at peak stuff, that we don't need more stuff. What really drives us is the shared experiences that we have with our family, with our loved ones, with our colleagues, right? It's those shared experiences that give life meaning, and there's tremendous pent-up demand for that. Yeah. So I think meaning is coming up as a new consumer sensibility, I'll call it. And in the book Authenticity, we described authenticity as the new consumer sensibility for the experience economy. That the primary buying criterion by which people choose who to buy from and what to buy is based on how authentic they view your offering, your place, and your company. And now with the transformation company, I think meaning is going to become that consumer sensibility, that people are going to buy from and work for those companies that give their lives meaning.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. How do you measure the impact of a good experience? What have you seen in terms of measurement that's been effective?
It's amazing how much work is being done on experiences today. I mean, one is you have the sort of, one is it's not NPS and it's not CX. Those are not the ways to measure those past views and so forth. There are great companies like Happy or Not out of Finland that you've seen the four happy face, whether it's a sad face or a happy, angry to sad to very happy. You just press a button, right? Very quickly, boom, done. You still get the effect of most people who respond are those that are either very happy or very sad or very disappointed in it, not the ones in the middle and more disappointed than any others. But it is a great mechanism that you can just sort of keep a pulse on what is going on. I'm working with famous neuroscientist Paul Zak, and one of the things he's done is he's been able to, using fMRIs to measure what's going on in the brain and be able to fit that into the flow of blood through your arms, so that with a Fitbit-like device, he can then measure how engaged are you in experience. And this would apply to employees or customers, that you get a sort of an arc of dramatic structure through an experience as it goes up and down based on this measurement. And you use this over enough people, you get a real time of understanding what's going on. You can correlate that to what you're trying to do in the experience and then say, okay, this area needs help, we're doing great here, and so forth, to get that dramatic structure that you want. I also know of a company in the Netherlands called 2 Days Mood, the number 2 and then Days Mood, that measures employee experiences. And they do it on a real-time basis as well, where you get a little message that says, how are you feeling right now? And then they can correlate that, the results that they get on employees, to how much economic value you create for customers. So there's another way of measuring. There's more and more. I'm talking with another company in the Netherlands that's doing an amazing job at measuring how good employees are, the experiences that you give employees and how that affects the experience that they then turn over and give to customers.
Interesting. Those are great examples. What would you suggest to someone who's just starting out to do this work in their company? Where should they start, and how do they get their business leaders or HR leaders on board?
Right. So one, I mean, in terms of the overall company of what you should do, I think is the principle of theater is the most important, in the sense that it doesn't require capital equipment. It doesn't require huge design efforts. You can just sort of like start by getting people to understand that their work is theater, right? Once you actually have that concept in your head, you'll act accordingly. Yeah. But then you can help them and train them again without a lot of high costs. In terms of getting leaders to understand it, I think it's what we talked about before a little bit, is to get them to experience it for themselves. Get them to understand that as consumers, the high value they place on experiences over things. Take them on an experience expedition, right, in your local city or other places that you're going. Let them see what's happening and then recognize that, and then say, okay, I get it, then I need to create this for my customers. I think that would be the number one thing to do.
Great. Thank you. What do you see for the future of work and experiences?
Well, I mean, if you think about what's going on right now, I mean, the future of professional work is in fact hybrid, right? Is that most people, I mean, to tell you, my last 18 months at IBM, I was a telecommuter. I was one of the first telecommuters in IBM, right? This was 92, 93. And it's amazing how immediately how much more productive I was, right? I can be so much more productive. And I just sort of like cram all my physical meetings. That was before we had Zoom and that. We did a lot of email things, but I crammed all my physical meetings into 1 or 2 days a week, and then could focus. I mean, actually focus on what I had to do the rest of the time and working from home. And I think that's the way that for professionals work is going to be, and what I think but it means we can't just Zoom to death or Teams them to death or WebEx or whatever you want to do. It's a wonderful opportunity, at least potential opportunity, to get them to really focus long-term and not have their attention split in so many different ways, which, I mean, there are wonderful things about Slack and other tools that we have, but that if you have to be able to let people turn off and focus in order to get deep thinking and deep work done. And I think that's something that we need to come to more of a realization of, that sometimes you just got to put away everything and let people focus. The other thing we've got to do there is you think about that 4 realms of experience, we got to help employees with the aesthetic side of their own work experience from home, right? working on small laptops is not the way to go. I noticed, I at my home, I've got 3 monitors. I got my laptop, which is the one I'm using here since I'm on vacation, and where I should turn into a tablet and draw on. I got a third wireless to screen. I got a huge, big 27-inch monitor. I can get work done here. I mean, when I work here, like I sort of keep up with stuff, but it's hard to really do grounded work because the screen's so darn small. So and the chairs aren't as comfortable as the nice office chair that I have at home, and the environment isn't as good because my wife and I sort of run into each other as opposed to having different parts of the house and so forth. We need to help people create the right work environment at home, right? That right aesthetic environment, so they want to hang out and be at work, and not just leave it to their own devices or their own work environments.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate your time today. This has been a fun and very educational, highly educational discussion with you. Thanks for sharing all of your research, and thanks for all the work that you've done and for influencing and opening the doors for so many of us to do this important work. I think you've been one of these people that I think has had a high impact on the world, making it a better place. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Elliot. It's great to talk to you and to your network of people. I notice there's still a lot of things on the chat. If somebody still wants to chat about something, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and be happy to answer whatever questions I have. But I got a tea time this afternoon, so it might not be a quick answer.
You've got your priorities right. Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you.
And those of you who are connecting in the next session, look forward to seeing you. Those who are dropping off, thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Aloha, Joe. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.